Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating comparison of two entirely distinct ancient texts. Now, at first glance, these passages seem to describe two completely different universes. One paints this beautiful picture of lush, peaceful restoration, while the other literally drops us right into a gritty, dangerous fight for survival. Yet, as we're going to see by breaking down the text today, they actually share a profound underlying message about what it truly means to trust in the divine when you're pushed to your absolute limits. Let's just jump right into this stark contrast. On one hand, we have the book of Hosea, which uses this incredibly rich language, like blossom like the lily. It evokes warmth, right? Growth and security. But then, look at the Gospel of Matthew. Sheep in the midst of wolves. It's terrifying, it's vulnerable, and it's completely chaotic. And this brilliantly sets up our two worlds theme for this exploration. We're going to navigate both of these extremes to understand the shared human experience hidden right beneath these ancient words. Part 1. Hosea's Garden of Restoration. So to really grasp Hosea's vision of divine grace, we have to look at the logical progression laid out in chapter 14. It's a very clear three-part journey. First up is repentance. The text actually instructs the people of Israel to literally take with you words and return to the Lord. Basically, they've collapsed under the weight of their own guilt, and they need to verbally acknowledge it. But step 2, that's where it gets really interesting. Renunciation. They have to declare, Assyria will not save us, nor shall we have horses to mount, and they have to completely stop saying our God to things they made with their own hands. They are actively rejecting their false reliance on military might and handcrafted idols. And it's only after those first two steps that we hit step 3, restoration. This is exactly where the divine responds with, I will heal their defection, I will love them freely. What is truly fascinating here is how the text visually describes that restoration. You'll notice it doesn't use abstract philosophical concepts. It relies on these incredibly vivid botanical metaphors. It says the divine will be like the morning dew for Israel. And the results? They're stunning. We're talking blossoming like a lily, striking roots deep like a Lebanon cedar, and having the splendor of an olive tree. It paints this overwhelming sensory picture for us. You can almost smell the fragrance of the cedar and taste the wine of Lebanon. The text even personifies a verdant cypress tree, having it say, because of me, you bear fruit. This is a portrait of absolute, thriving, natural life returning to a people who were, quite frankly, entirely depleted. Hosea then concludes this beautiful, restorative vision with a critical piece of advice. Straight are the paths of the Lord, in them the just walk, but sinners stumble. See, the text frames this entire journey as a path of wisdom. It explicitly calls out to him who is wise and him who is prudent. The big takeaway here is that walking this verdant path, it isn't automatic. It requires serious, intentional prudence to navigate correctly without just completely tripping over your own feet. Part 2. Matthew's warning of persecution. All right, brace yourselves because we are doing a sharp, dramatic pivot away from that peaceful garden straight into a high-stakes survival narrative. Jesus tells his apostles, behold, I am sending you like sheep in the midst of wolves. Just think about that for a second. We've just left the absolute safety of a lush, restored garden, and now we are dealing with this jarring juxtaposition of innocent prey and predatory danger. It really highlights the extreme, terrifying vulnerability of the apostles' mission. They aren't being sent out as heavily armored warriors. They are being sent out as literally the most defenseless animals imaginable, entirely surrounded by predators. So the obvious question is, how on earth do you survive as a sheep among wolves? Well, the text provides this famous idiom, be shrewd as serpents and simple as doves. You basically have to navigate a world filled with multifaceted threats by balancing two completely opposite traits. On one hand, you need the tactical cleverness and situational awareness of a serpent, just so you don't get eaten. But at the exact same time, you have to maintain the innocent purity and harmlessness of a dove. You've got to be smart, sure, but you absolutely cannot let the viciousness of the world corrupt your character. And let's look at exactly what kind of wolves they are facing. The sheer scope of opposition outlined in Matthew is just staggering. First off, the religious threats, being handed over to courts and scourged in synagogues. Second, the political threats, being dragged before governors and kings. But the third is perhaps the most heartbreaking, the relational threats. The text warns that brother will hand over brother to death and the father his child. Children will rise up against parents. So the absolutely crucial point here is that this danger permeates every single level of ancient society. The text bluntly states, you will be hated by all. There is quite literally nowhere to hide. Now, given all of that intense danger, you would probably expect the text to provide a detailed, step-by-step legal defense strategy, right?
But instead, it gives us a massive paradox. It says, when they hand you over, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say. Think about how wild that is. Despite facing immense trials where their very lives are on the line, they are instructed to completely surrender their anxiety. They're told that in that exact moment, they will be given what to say because it won't actually be them speaking, but the spirit of your Father speaking through you. It is the ultimate test of trusting something far greater than your own preparation.
Part 3. Finding wisdom and endurance. Okay, let's bring these two worlds together. Look at the powerful shared theme between them both: renouncing control. Back in Hosea, to get to that flourishing garden, the people had to renounce their control by completely rejecting Assyria's military might and their own handmade idols. They had to stop trying to save themselves. Over in Matthew, to survive the courts and the wolves, the apostles are told to renounce control by not worrying about their defense, trusting entirely that the Spirit will speak right through them. Both texts, despite being totally worlds apart in their tone and setting, are teaching the exact same ancient wisdom. True endurance and ultimate salvation come from surrendering your illusion of human control and trusting entirely in divine providence.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from Matthew's text. But whoever endures to the end will be saved. The required response to all this adversity, even when you are literally fleeing from one town to the next as the text describes, is steadfast resilience. You see, you don't endure by fighting the wolves with their own weapons. You endure by holding on to that incredibly delicate balance of the serpent and the dove, and by trusting the voice that speaks through you when you have absolutely no words left.
And that leaves us with a lingering, profound question to reflect on. How do we find endurance when our own path gets dark? Whether you are seeking the verdant restoration of Hosea, or you're just trying to survive intense pressure like the apostles in Matthew, the ancient wisdom is identical. Let go of your manufactured defenses. Walk straight on the path, and trust that when you have absolutely no words left, something greater will speak for you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.